Well, hello there once again. I'm glad you've chosen to spend a little time with me here on Drummer Daily. My name's Daniel. I'm so happy you could join me. As I am recording this, I've got the smoker outside. I'm smoking some meat for, we're having, in our family, the Kentucky Derby is a fun little day that we like to always have fun with. And so we always have some friends over and have a little Kentucky Derby party. Don't live in Kentucky. I actually used to live in Louisville where the Kentucky Derby is held, but ever since, I guess maybe since my wife and I, since we got married, we've always had like a little fun with it. Like it's just a good excuse, to put on some fancy clothes and watch a horse race and pretend to know what we're watching for one day a year. So I'm kind of getting the food ready for tomorrow. So I'm kind of keeping a close eye on my remote thermometer that tells me what temperature the smoker is and what temperature the meat is and stuff. But anyway, that's what's going on with me today. But a couple of days ago, I was doing one of my online intensives with another drummer, a one-on-one thing that I do, and this topic came up. And I thought, man, that's a great idea for a podcast. And I realized I was sharing some of my story with him, and I realized this is something I probably have not shared here on the podcast. So I'm going to do that today. So what I want to talk to you about is there was a time, and this is definitely going to be true for you if you decide to kind of progress through and want to become a professional drummer, or even if you don't want to make a full-time living at being a professional drummer, if you would just like to get some paid gigs or just play out a little bit more, play some more gigs with different people, things like that, even if it's just nights and weekends or whatever it is that occasionally you just would like to do more of it. This is something that that is going to help you. But this is in my life, when I was in this situation where I was working a full-time job, or maybe I was working three or four I had 3 or 4 contract jobs where I was working from home and doing this and that, and was really busy. And someone would call and ask me, and they would say to me, hey, can you come do this gig? Can you come out and play this? We got a couple of shows over this weekend, we need to drive a little bit. Can you do it? And for whatever reason, I couldn't do it. I was either booked with something else, or I was working, or whatever it was. I had to say no to the opportunity. And then, later, I have a couple of friends who will call me and say, hey, this Sunday, my church drummer can't make it. He got sick or hurt. And a lot of times, sometimes this will happen like last minute. It'll be like, Saturday night, hey, my drummer is sick and tomorrow morning I need somebody. Would you be able to come jump in? And of course, they probably ask me because they know that most of the time I at least can jump in with stuff I haven't heard and fake my way through it enough so as to not completely ruin the church service or whatever. But anyway, all of that to say, sometimes I have to say no to that. I'm like, no. Either I've said, I really had planned to go to church with my family or do this or that. Whatever the reason is, I have to say no to that. And that used to happen to me a lot, especially, like I said, when I was doing, a bunch of different jobs to make ends meet and couldn't say yes to all this stuff. And I started thinking, man, there's going to get to be a point where people are going to stop asking me because I have to say no. I feel like I'm saying no a lot. And I don't want to say no. I actually would love to do it. It just didn't work out this time. And so I started saying something to these people when they'd call and I had to tell them no. And incidentally, this is almost the exact same thing I said years and years ago when I was just getting started. Many of you, I don't know if all of you know this, but many of you know that I used to tour with a band called All Sons and Daughters, or a worship music band, and they were pretty successful. And I wasn't like technically a member of the group, so to speak, but I was. If they were playing a show, I was the drummer for about 7 years or so. And early on with them, it was starting small, and we didn't really have any ambitions to do anything huge. That's not kind of the point of the band. But the very first trip I ever did with them, they couldn't pay me much money. I don't know if they even paid me at all, but they invited me to come. It was like, hey, we're going to drive this 15-passenger van, the 3 of us, to Arkansas and play a couple of shows. And I remember going there and doing it and thinking, man, this is so much fun. This music inspires me. This is like the best band I've ever played music with. I was like, I thought this is like the cool kids asking me to play music with them. I was a fan of their music and I was getting to play it. And I thought, man, this is so cool. And so I said the same thing to them that I also started saying to other people all throughout the years whenever they'd call and ask me to play a gig and I had to say no. And it was this. I would basically say, man, I am so sorry that I have to say no. Or in the case of Back with All Sons and Daughters, I said, I am enjoying this so much. And this is something you can say, by the way, even on gigs when you're out on a gig that you have said yes to. This is something you should say as much as possible without getting annoying to pretty much any other musician in your world. You say, hey, either if I'm saying no, I'm really bummed that I have to say no because I want to say yes because I really like playing your music and helping you out and being a part of your thing. Or if I'm saying yes, just say I really enjoy it. But then you say, hey, I would love for you to ask me to play with you again. And in the case where you're saying no to someone this time, you say, hey, I'm sorry that I have to say no this time, but it's not because I don't want to. Please ask me every time you need me or you would like to have me. Please don't assume that I can't. Please ask me and then let me say no if I can't. But that's the key, is to say, please ask me and don't assume that I can't. Because the thing I realize is that a lot of times people make all these assumptions about your motivations, and it's not that anyone else is bad for doing this. This is what we do as human beings. When someone communicates something to us, we don't just take what they say and that's all that we choose to understand about what they're communicating. We also choose to fill in the gaps, the blanks in our own minds with whatever we'd like to make up. And what I realize is that if you say no to somebody a whole lot of times, they're going to, they might just get frustrated and just say, all right, well, he never can say yes, so I'm not going to ask anymore. Or B, if you say something like, man, I really can't do it this time because I've got to work on the weekend this weekend. Well, if you don't say anything else, guess what happens the next time a weekend gig comes up? Well, they're going to remember that you said, I'll have to work on the weekend. Now, it might have only been this weekend you had to work, and next weekend when they're going to ask, you don't have to work. But they're going to assume, oh, this drummer works on the weekend, so if I ever have a weekend gig, can't ask. You just don't know. And so I'm not saying you have to nag people and constantly go back to them and say, please ask me, please ask me. But if you're in a situation where you have a moment, a personal moment with an artist or a band leader or a producer, whoever you're with, and say, hey, I'd love to do this again. Please always ask me. Don't assume that I can't. I'm doing these other jobs. I'm working these other things, but I'd like to do this more. And so it's always a priority. If I can make it work, I will. Say those kinds of things. And even early on, I know with All Sons and Daughters, and some other situations I've been in, I even said to them, I said, hey, this is so much fun to me that I understand and that I want to be a part of it as much as I can. And I understand that we're this isn't a huge production or anything, and you may not be able to pay me. And so even if you can't pay me, I'm telling you now, please ask me. And if I can make it work, if I can afford it or whatever it is, I will do it. Now, I'm not telling you need to go offer to work for free for everybody, but if you find yourself in situations where you get that feeling in your gut, like this is going to be something great, I'd love to be a part of it, don't be afraid to put your cards out on the table a little bit and stick your neck out a little bit and say, hey, this is something special to me too, and I want to contribute to it as long as you want to have me. And so I want to encourage you. I honestly feel like having that little talk, those 3 or 4 sentences, I've probably gotten more mileage in my career out of having that talk than I probably have had out of any other one thing, other short of my actual drumming, my playing. Outside of that, I feel like I probably have gotten the most mileage from just having that talk anytime that I feel like that's necessary or would be helpful. So I want to encourage you to do the same thing. You got to be honest and open with people. In this day and age of social media where everyone's putting their best foot forward and they're always trying to be polished and show everything off the best they can, Remember that you're not going to be able to do that in a one-on-one situation with someone when you're playing a gig with them. They're going to see some of the rough edges and things. And so establishing that relationship and letting them know that what they're doing is meaningful to you and you want to be a part of it, that goes so far to help you get called back again, or to just have them remember you and say, man, that person is not only a great drummer, but they're also a really great person to be around, and I want to have them around more. So think about that stuff and be intentional about it. They say you can't teach personality or whatever. I disagree. You can definitely learn how to be a better friend, a better bandmate, a better drummer, but a better help to those around you, and even learn how to be an inspiration to those around you. So take this with you, and I want to encourage you to use it as much as you can. All right, thanks for joining me, and we'll be back again really soon here on Drummer Daily. Bye for now.